So I replaced pretty much all of my appointment setters. I fired them and replaced them with AI. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how I did that so you can do the same thing too, save a ton of money, book more calls, make more money, and have a simpler business model. I think when it comes to scaling a business, we all know that one of the main things that we need to do is we need to speak to more people. And we work with a hell of a lot of different businesses across numerous different industries, but I think one of the best ways to look at this is from a fitness coaching perspective. Now, if we were a fitness coach and we were working on the gym floor in a gym, what would one of the best ways be in order for us to get more clients? Well, it would be walking the gym floor, speaking to prospects and creating rapport with them and ultimately converting them into clients. Now, the same thing happens online, regardless if you're a fitness coach, if you're a consulting model, if you're a course creator, the same thing applies. How do we build trust and convert sales? Well, one of the best places to do that is inside the DMs. But we all know that one of the most tedious things to do in business is to be stuck in your DMs all day. So instead of hiring staff to do that and having the operational issues that come with that and the management issues that come with that too, and the pay that comes with that, we can use AI to essentially replace all of that for a fraction of the cost instead, using a few very simple automations and combining ChatGPT. Now, over the last few years, I've made it my mission to try and stay at the forefront of the automations, marketing, AI systems world, and I've tried a heap of different softwares. What we did instead is we built our own software systemized to scale, an all-in-one CRM software that alongside this does a huge amount of other tasks for you and your business and replace a ridiculous amount of other softwares. However, in this video, I'm going to show you how we're using our CRM software and AI to essentially replace a human being in the DMs that works 24/7, 365, never has a day off, and literally books calls on autopilot. However, before I show you how to do it, I think it's very important to have some context as to what this really does from a business perspective and what this really will do from your bottom line. Now, the majority of us will know the more awareness that we have will increase the chances of us making more sales. Most businesses, their funnel looks this narrow. It looks tiny. They have no awareness coming in at the top, which means they have no leads opting into lead magnets, and then they have no leads inquiring and paying them money. Our goal in business is to build your awareness so big, so wide, and so targeted that you have so many leads flowing down to the next steps to inquire, to opt into lead magnets, and to ultimately start paying you money. And from an ad perspective, we can start running Facebook ads to bring us new followers for as little as 30p, 50p, with the goal of being £1 or less per follower. A lot of businesses will optimize that. They'll spend a ton of ads, get a ton of new followers, but they'll do nothing with those followers because they don't have the time, they don't have the knowledge, and they don't really know what they should be doing. I'll show you how AI can replace that. But first, if you're running a top of funnel campaign and you're getting loads of new followers, but you're doing nothing with them, well, you're literally chucking money into ads to get followers, and then you're stopping just before you've started to monetize that. So I will show you how to monetize that instead with literally zero workload. Now, the first step in order to monetize your new following is to have a pipeline set up so you can track where leads are, who needs following up, and you can then keep perspective as to where the bottlenecks are happening. If I said to you, what's the main problem in your business? A lot of business owners will answer saying, I need more leads. Great, but where do you need more leads? A lot of businesses have enough leads. Their main bottleneck is somewhere throughout that sales process, but they have zero perspective on where. That's even more difficult to truly analyze and understand with organic content and with your DMs unless you have a pipeline. So the goal is that we have a pipeline built out with the following stages. Lead magnet downloads to then track and add every single lead that opts into a funnel for a lead magnet. The next section is through STS chat, our version of ManyChat, to track all of the leads that come through commenting and DMing keywords. The next section is social media leads, and this will then track every type of social media contact that then messages outside of the ones that messages the keywords. Our then goal is to look at this, and these three columns are fully automated, and we'll see exactly where each lead is coming from. We'll tag them, we'll add them into the appropriate pipeline, and we'll save the source. So then when we start selling leads, we can then see where our sales are coming from. If we then scroll across, what this then allows us to do is have the following columns. Conversations, essentially leads in conversations, leads that have been offered calls, calls that get booked, and dead leads. What the AI then does is when it has a conversation with a lead, it will move them into conversation and actually have that conversation. When it then offers them a call and books a call, it will move them into the appropriate column too, so then we can see who's been in conversations, who's been offered calls, who has booked calls, and then who's a dead lead and stopped replying. This then means that from a business overall perspective, we can look at this and we can see where the main drop-off is. And a lot of the time in business, there's so much low-hanging fruit. For example, leads that we offer calls to but then don't book. There's so much low-hanging fruit there to follow up with those prospects and give them a nudge to then get them to book in. So I think the two main problems in business is, one, having the time to manage DMs, but two, actually tracking so you understand where the problems are happening inside your DMs. Now, once we've got the pipeline built up, what we want to do is we want to start building our actual AI agent that will handle all of our messages with the goal of getting calls booked in for us. Inside our platform, we essentially have a section called Conversation AI, which is a direct integration into ChatGPT. The latest versions of ChatGPT, at the point of recording this, ChatGPT 4, 4.1, 5, 5.1 as well. And generally what we're finding is using ChatGPT 4 is working better than 5. 5 generally just gives a bit of a longer winded response, whereas something like a DM conversation that's a little bit more casual, using ChatGPT 4 or 4.1 tends to work best. What we then also do is have a series of automations built out that handle this. The first one is turning off the AI setter. What this then does is essentially when a contact is tagged, it will pull them out of the workflow and remove them from the AI. So for example, you might want to turn the AI off on a certain contact, you want to handle that manually, fine, you tag them, that automation does a workload for us. The next one is what we want to then happen is after a contact replies, we then want to move them appropriately on the pipeline and turn the AI on, or if they have a tag such as they've booked a call, such as we've manually tagged them to turn the AI off, we just want to set it so the AI turns off again to ensure that it never re-triggers on contacts where we don't want it to re-trigger. So those two automations, it's essentially just a bit of housekeeping that then allows the AI to run automatically 24/7, 365, and it can then even handle voice notes, images and GIFs too, to literally handle everything in the DMs. It can also then go one step further and it can also automatically follow up with prospects after a certain period of time too. So inside Conversation AI, we can create an agent. I've created one here earlier as an example. Now inside the AI setter, what we want to do is we want to set the criteria and the settings to start with. So initially we can leave the AI off. We can then put it into suggestive mode where it will suggest replies for you to then approve and send before it then ultimately just autopilots and sends them on itself. It means you can train it, it can learn, and then there's that feedback loop for it to keep improving. The third one is autopilot, where you can put it into autopilot and it will literally just run the conversations automatically and handle all of the workload for you, digesting messages, voice notes, images, and then sending back replies too. Cool thing is, the way that ChatGPT works in this scenario is it can also handle multiple different languages. So if you have leads messaging in different languages, it can handle that too. We can then select the channel that we want it to run on: Instagram, Facebook, SMS, WhatsApp, you name it, it can run on there. We then set the time frame that we want it to wait before replying to messages so it doesn't look robotic but it looks like a human. The maximum number of messages that it will send before it turns off. So generally if the AI has had 25 or more messages and it's still not booked in a call or got to the end goal of making a sale, we know that there's probably something going on with that conversation so the AI can stop and a human can jump in. We can set it so it can reply to images, reply to voice notes, and then if you manually jump into a conversation, it also then turns off for a period of time before turning back on as well. Now the next thing that we want to do is we want to build out a knowledge base. So you'll see here that we can select a knowledge base once we've created it. So inside knowledge base, what we can do is we can create a specific knowledge base. In this knowledge base, what it will then allow us to do is upload the following: links to websites, FAQs, tables of data, rich data, and then file uploads. So you can upload files of previous conversations, of essentially material that it needs to follow and learn from. And we can then upload URLs such as social media links, such as website links, such as funnel links, so it has context on everything. In addition to that, we can then also use the FAQs to give it frequently asked questions and tell it how to reply to those. So then it literally replies in the same tone, the same framing, the same way that a human would, and people won't tell the difference if it was a human or if it was AI. What we can then do though is inside Conversation AI, if we head back into it, what we can do under bot training is once we've selected our knowledge base, we can then test it here. And when we test the messages, we can say, yes, I like it, no, I don't like it, and it will learn. When we say we don't like it, we'll then be prompted to give a suggested reply in future. So then it automatically then saves that to the knowledge base into the FAQs as well, so that it then keeps learning every single time. So ultimately what that means is it can literally be like a human being that you'd bring on board, you'd train, you'd improve and get them to the point that they can actually handle conversations themselves. The same thing applies here. Now into bot goals, what we do here is we give it a full personality to follow. We give it a series of goals that it needs to follow. For example, the goal being to book a lead into this call once they've qualified, and we give it the criteria and we give it the call link. And then if we can't book them in, downsell them into this. For example, we go down the route of YouTube to get them into longer form content. We then give it a series of additional instructions, which is ultimately an SOP that it has to follow, and it has to then follow this SOP just like a staff member would in order to then qualify a lead and then book them into our calendar or downsell them into something else. But what we can then also do is we can go one step further and we can have an auto follow-up. In this auto follow-up, we can then set it so that if a lead stops replying, if a contact says they're busy, or if they request us to message back at a certain time, we can choose it to follow up after a certain period of time, follow up after another certain period of time if the lead said they're busy, but then also if they said, can you follow up on this time at this day, it can do that too. And the cool thing with this is the AI will then send the message. So the way that it works is we give it the additional information, which is like the SOP. We give it the goal, the outcome that we want to happen, the personality of how we want it to sound, but then what it also does is it has a memory per contact alongside the whole knowledge base. So think of it like this. Knowledge base is essentially its brain. The personality is how it communicates. The goal is the outcome that it's going to achieve. The additional information is the SOP that it will follow. And then what it does is it has a memory per contact on whatever platform it's speaking to someone on. So the cool thing with that is it will then have a mini memory per contact. So if a contact says, I'm living in Spain, it will remember that and it will be able to say that a year, 2 years, 10 years down the line, because it will remember all of that from that contact. Now, a big thing here is once we have this in place, we can then test it. And like I mentioned earlier, we can say, yes, I like it. No, I don't. In future, reply like this. And then the bot keeps improving. And then it literally gets to a point that it handles all the messages for us, and our social media channels, our WhatsApp channels, our SMS channels, they literally just run on autopilot for us. And I think one of the biggest problems that a lot of business owners have when they look at trying to implement something like AI is they don't have the patience. They start using the software, they plug in a few prompts and expect that a few prompts is going to replace a full person in the business. It's not. A lot of AI softwares are very much conversational based. Unless you have conversations with them to improve them and iterate the way that they work, well, generally they're not going to work. So the whole goal is that you need to launch something, you need to test it, you need to refine it, and you need to use real world feedback in order to improve it. Otherwise, you're never going to be able to get to the level that a human would. Just like if you brought on board a staff member, they're probably not going to be perfect from the get-go. The same goes with AI. But the problem, a lot of people, is they accept that staff members won't always be right to start with, but they don't do the same with AI, and they expect that AI will work initially from the start when they've not even given it the time of day. Instead, if you look at it like this, if you bring on AI into your business, it's essentially like bringing on board a free staff member. You train it, you improve it, and it keeps getting better and better and better. But it's then more consistent than a human. And if it can even operate to the level of 80% of a human, but it can work 24/7, 365, and be more consistent, well, then that's worth its weight in gold. And if we look at something like DMs, it's a huge part of pretty much every business. You're not going to replace that in an hour's time. It might take a couple days, but a couple days for your DMs to then be automated and streamlined and booking in calls on autopilot is well worth the time frame. So if you're currently sat on the fence as to whether you should hire more staff, you should spend more time in your DMs, or you should use AI, well, we can conclude from the get-go that spending more time in your DMs and dedicating more focus to that will, for the majority of businesses, book them more calls and make them more money. But it's impossible for pretty much every business owner that's probably watching this, myself included, to spend more time in the DMs. Yes, there might be a couple extra hours in a day that you could find to add into the DMs, but your task list as a business owner is never ending and it's constantly growing. And if we want to build a business that outperforms our competitors, gives us an incredible quality of life and a predictable income, we need to be very, very clear and protective with where our focus goes. And it's impossible to do that if we're accepting that we have to do all these little tasks in order to grow our business. If you're spending 4, 5, 6 hours a day in your DMs, you're probably making money right now, but the minute that you stop, your money stops too. Instead, when you plug in a system like AI, it does it 24/7, 365, and means that your business will grow even when you're not working.